Okay, I think we're all good to go now, everybody. Sorry, I apologize if I don't look like I'm looking directly at all of you. I have a couple of screens here so that I can see you over here, and I can see my what I'll be sharing with everyone as we go along. I want to introduce myself. My name is Patrick Sullivan. And I am the CEO of the Halifax Chamber of Commerce. And I'm joined today by someone who's very highly famous, and that is Paul. Paul, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Patrick. And it's nice to see you. I think this is the first time we've seen each other since the pandemic started. Maybe. That's a joke. We see each other almost daily now. Well, no, we do see each other daily on screen, but good to see you again, as always. Hello, everybody. Welcome to people around Halifax and wherever you may be tuning in from. My name is Paul MacKinnon, and I am the CEO of Downtown Halifax Business Commission.
Right. So nice to see you, Paul. And I see some names of folks that I know on the line. So nice to see all of you as well. What we thought we'd do today is kind of go over where we are, what's currently happening with COVID response programs, if I could put it that way. And I would mention, although it should probably go without saying, that both Paul and I are actively advocating for some of the programs that you see. We're advocating for change in some of the programs. We're advocating for renewal of some of these programs. We're advocating for increasing some of these programs. I'm not going to go through all of that, although I may touch on some of those things today. So I'm not going to go into all the gory details of whether we think one program is better than another. I think it's really important that you as business owners look at all of the programs in total. Okay, you need to look at federal programs, you need to look at provincial programs. If there was a municipal program, you need to look at that as well. We're still in a very, very difficult time for businesses, not-for-profits, and individuals, right? This is a really, really stressful time. We at the Chamber try to support you, as I know Paul does with his members at the Business Commission. We have webinars, we have activities. I would encourage you to look at our events. We had a great event last week that I think had over 350 attendees that spoke about mental health. The title of the event was, "Do You Need a Day Off?" Clearly, there are a lot of people that do need a day off. We all need a day off. We need a day off from COVID results that are over 100. And we need a day off from the stress that working from home, if you're able, parenting, if you have children, with children sort of skittering around you while you're trying to work, and of course the everyday stress of the COVID pandemic. So it has been a really, really difficult time, and it's important for you to talk to people. It's important for you to share your feelings. I'm in no way a therapist, but I think it's sometimes better to talk through these things than to sit alone and worry. We are going to get through this. I really do think there is light at the end of the tunnel. I believe Nova Scotia passed through the 400,000 vaccination barrier yesterday or the day before. So people are getting vaccinated. I know I am for vaccination, just all transparency. I am for vaccination. It is the thing that is going to get us through this process. I know there are others that may disagree, but for me, I believe it's the right thing. I believe it's the right thing for me to protect myself, and I believe it's the right thing for me to protect others as we go along. Paul, are you old enough to get a vaccination yet? Or
I am. So I think, like yourself, and I guess people have personal opinions about vaccinations, but I think one thing certainly most of the, I guess every business organization I've talked to has been saying is that, the one thing we should all be agreeing on is vaccinations are the way out of this. And so regardless of any other squabbles or criticisms or discussions that we have with people, that one of the messages we all should be pushing is get vaccinated. That is the best road back to economic prosperity for our businesses as well. So, there was some great news I thought coming out of the US yesterday with the CDC. Their concern is that, it looks like there's going to be, a huge loosening of restrictions for people who are vaccinated. Their big concern is the willingness of vaccination there seems to be, I think, fairly low. Here in Nova Scotia, it's not. So hopefully Nova Scotians are out there. And yeah, I got my vaccine last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. My first shot, I got the AstraZeneca, which was the one that was available to me, and I have no regrets, and I'm looking forward to getting my second shot and being fully vaccinated.
Absolutely. And I get AstraZeneca as well, and I was very happy to get it. And I'm still pretty darn happy that I have it.
I mean, you and I had full heads of hair before that first shot, but other than that,
Yes, that's right.
yes. It's been fine.
And I think
just joking, Dr. Strang.
Yes, and I think my Wi-Fi is a little better now that I've had the vaccination as well. But anyway, I shouldn't make jokes about it. I don't mean to. I think it is an important way to get us out of this. If you look at countries, and I do look at countries all the time that are getting to levels of vaccination that get them to herd immunity, like Israel or the UK. And what they're seeing is significantly reduced numbers of people that are getting COVID, and very, very reduced numbers of people that are being hospitalized. And if you look at the UK, the last few days, they've not had a death, which is a very sad statistic. But to see that they've not had a death means that vaccinations are working as they come out of lockdowns. So let me jump into to some of this material now. Again, I would remind everybody we're always advocating. These are not one of these solutions are perfect in and of themselves. You need to look at all the solutions that are available. And when we look at solutions, frankly, we're going to start at federal solutions as they provide the greatest level of support. And then we'll look at provincial solutions. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that the municipality has been able to do with their fairly limited resources. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to share my screen, which I want to do right now. And let's see. So you should all be seeing. Paul, are you seeing my screen now?
I am.
Okay, so I apologize for the messy desktop, but what you will see is our Halifax Chamber website. On the Halifax Chamber website, we have lots of information. We have articles from Business Voice, all that kind of stuff. We have events that are coming up. Retirement planning for business owners, that's very optimistic. And then business support series, realtor solutions for Nova Scotia's affordable housing crisis. So folks from the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors will be talking a little bit about what they're doing and what's happening in the housing market right now. So I go to resources, which are, jumped right to resources. If I go to resources and just sort of hover over it, I see COVID-19 resources, and I click on that, and you'll see a page that has lots of information, a little bit of information on what's happening, a little bit about our chamber events page, because as I mentioned, there's lots of activities, lots of things you should look at. We do have a very full schedule right now. And of course, the events people will kill me when I say this, but I have been talking to the federal government about getting some specialists about specific programs like SUS, the wage subsidy, and the rent subsidy, and those kinds of things, to talk specifically about those. But we won't do that today. Today, we're going to give that broad overview. So I'm not going to go into the provincial restrictions. There's a bit of an FAQ in there. I'm not going to talk about that. You should take a look at the provincial resources that are available. I'm going to go to the provincial coronavirus page in a few minutes when we get to the provincial side, and we'll take a look at some of the restrictions at that point and the business supports there. Signage and general resources, again, I won't focus on that, but we have some posters and things. If you're unable to get posters that say face mask required, how to wear a mask, all those kinds of things, we have some things that you can download. We also have a program called the Post Promise, which is people outside safely together. And what it does is it tries to convey to anyone that a particular establishment, whether that's a business or a restaurant or whatever it is, that they are doing things safely and encouraging washing hands, wearing a mask, physically distancing, not coming to work if you're sick. And we know the province announced a new program there. We'll talk in a few moments about that. Anyway, I encourage you to take the Post Promise as well. So let's jump into some of these federal resources. Now, I apologize for our website. It's pretty good, but what it will force me to do is kind of jump back and forth a little bit. So I will be jumping back and forth. I'm not going to go into some of these things, the new in 2024 or 2020 T4 reporting requirements, but you should, if you are a business, you're doing your taxes or you've done your taxes, you should make sure there are new T4 reporting requirements that CRA wasn't really very good at getting the information out on. Talk a little bit about employment insurance benefits. You can click on that as well. And then the caregiving benefit, and then the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, which is kind of the EI element of sick leave, which is great. But you're talking about advocacy. We were on with the federal government the other day, and our position was that folks, it would be better if people were able to receive sick leave from their employer, and then the employer could claim that back in order to ensure that people can get sick leave in a timely manner, rather than doing the little bit of a wait for that they might have to for the federal program. So now jumping into some of these things. So the Canadian Emergency Rent Subsidy, as I click on this, it takes us to a page that talks about that emergency rent subsidy. And I think, Paul, you saw some information on the uptake of this just the other day.
We did. So, I mean, this is, I mean, we're not here to kind of rate which programs are the best, but certainly, a lot of the feedback we've had, particularly from the restaurant industry, is that it's really the federal rent subsidy and the wage subsidy, to them are the key programs. And I've had a number of restaurant owners say to me, like, if it weren't for those two programs, I would already be out of business. That those are lifelines that are keeping them going. So those are very important programs, and part of the advocacy that we've done, Patrick, that you've done with the federal government, is that these programs, need to continue in place. They were going to expire in June. The federal government has extended them both to September, and we're asking for, and they've kind of responded that even that's a bit of a flexible date. And the idea is that these need to continue until such time that we're kind of back to a much more normal situation. But in terms of the rent subsidy, so this is a program, when it first came out, didn't work very well. It was kind of complicated. It involved the feds, the province, the landlord, and our feedback pretty quickly was, this is too complicated. Let's just get the money into the hands of the businesses so that they can pay their landlords. And everyone seemed to agree with that. And to their credit, the federal government actually changed the program. So it's a much more improved program. The complaints we're hearing about it went way down, almost kind of disappeared. Which led us to believe that this program had really high take up. So I was a bit surprised, Patrick. There was some information that came out from StatsCan, and we also did some internal polling amongst the downtowns and main streets across Nova Scotia. And the take up of the program, I mean, it is, people are using this program. It's very important, but not at levels that we would have thought they would. And this is one of the programs where, most people are eligible. I think the criteria is, if you're a business or a not-for-profit or a charity, or basically kind of if you're anyone that's experienced a loss in revenues, this is a program that you should be eligible for. So we've been promoting it. You've been promoting it. So I'm not sure why more people aren't using the program, but I think it's something that we need to dive into a little bit deeper. But I would encourage people on the call, if you're not using the program, you should check into it to see if you're eligible. This is, I would say this is a very important program.
Right, and you can actually, I won't go into this, but you can look to see sort of how people are using it. I think the average I saw the other day, Paul, was that across the country, about 40% of the businesses were using it. In Nova Scotia, it was only about 26% of businesses that were using it, although it was higher for hospitality businesses. So I would really encourage any of you to take a look at it. And I have spoken to a couple of members lately who thought this was still the old program, and it is not. It is completely different. You do not need your landlord's approval to participate in this program. That's number one. And number two, I think you can get up to 65% of kind of the rent back, up to a pretty significant amount, which we'll look at. And then in addition, and this is a big thing, when you're locked down, as many businesses are right now, you can apply for an additional amount that will provide you up to 90%. Okay, 90%. I see that someone has asked a question, and you can sort of ask questions in the chat or in the Q&A. I'm sort of monitoring both. Does the rent subsidy apply to businesses which started during the pandemic? I do not believe it does. Okay. Yeah,
this came up during a call recently, and there is confusion around this. So my understanding, generally is that the provincial programs, when we get into the provincial programs, there's confusion. So generally speaking, I think the federal programs don't apply if you started during the pandemic, but the provincial ones do. And so sometimes people are not applying for the provincial ones because they've heard that they're not eligible. And so that's, and again, it's a bit of parsing between the two jurisdictions. So our message again, I think, to the federal government on an advocacy point is we believe that these programs should be eligible for new businesses. The province has figured out a way to do that, and so hopefully the federal government will too. But I think you're right, Patrick. At the moment, it's not eligible for those businesses.
Right. And I've got another question here on the definition of a lockdown order for CERS. The definition of the lockdown order is if your business was ordered closed, you're locked down. If you're a consultant working from home, you are not ordered closed. If you are a restaurant and you're ordered closed for in-place dining, if you are I'm trying to think of the other businesses. There's lots of businesses. If you're a small retail establishment and you're ordered closed, you are ordered closed. But the provincial government has a list of businesses that were ordered closed. Frankly, if you don't know if you were ordered closed, then you probably were not ordered closed. Okay, I mean, that's not a terribly specific thing, but the province's answer is there. And maybe, I don't know if we've got anybody from the chamber on, but if you can find the link to the businesses that are ordered closed and put that up in the chat, I think that would help people. So who can apply? Just to click into this, if you had a CRA business number, if you had a payroll account, or you purchased the business asset of another person. So basically, there's a whole lot of folks that are eligible. What kind of businesses, charities are eligible, or not-for-profits? Again, another long list. I'm not going to go through these individually. And then you get into your experience in revenue drop. It has an online calculator. I'm going to click on that because it's actually pretty darn easy to do. So if I was to select a claim period of try to do right now, okay, I'm doing the calculator. This is an example of the calculator. It's not exactly what you would fill out to do the application, but it shows you what you can do. If you have—
If Patrick can do it, you all can do it.
Exactly. So, and here's the affiliated entities. No, I don't have any. Here's my compare the baseline options. So this is where it gets into the problematic part of you need to have baseline options. I'm going to compare the month of the previous year. What is your eligible revenue? I'm going to say that my eligible revenue in March 2019 was $50,000. I'm going to say my eligible revenue in this period was only $25,000. And again, and then last year, I'm going to say, again, my eligible revenue in February 2020 was, let's see, I'm going to make it $50,000 again. And then in 2021, I'm going to make it $25,000 again. Okay. So, oops, I've skipped over the part, but it says your rent subsidy rate is 40%. So they're going to give me 40% of my rent. And that's not only rent. Okay. I want to make sure we all know it's up to $75,000 in eligible expenses. And that includes rent, that includes power, that includes all kinds of things. So it does talk down here, and I'm not going to go through it, about the specifics of those expenses. But you can see rent, property tax, property insurance, interest on commercial mortgages. That could be a big one. Rental income, which you deduct. But lots of ways to kind of get to the deduction, and then you can then get to, okay, now calculate my total rent subsidy. I don't know if I actually get results here. If I filled out enough information, I didn't put in any information on what the rent actually was, so I won't get results. But you will get sort of a very specific amount, and then the capper is if you're ordered closed, you can get another 25%. This is huge, and anybody that's locked down should be applying for this. So I want to keep rolling along, but I just want to make sure if anybody on the line isn't utilizing this, then I hope you've learned something, and I hope you will. So I'm going to jump back now to, so we've gone through the rent subsidy. I'm going to go back to, this is the part that drives me crazy. So, and then into the wage subsidy. So the wage subsidy, you may be aware of, it provided up to 75% up to for employees who earned up to, and I'm going to get the number wrong, but it's about $58,000. So a pretty good salary, a great salary, in fact, and it would provide up to 75%. It doesn't now, Okay, so as time has gone on, that number's kind of gotten smaller and smaller. And as we get into the summer, that number will get smaller and smaller. So it'll go from 75% almost down to 20%. So you can be sure that Paul, why don't you talk about our meeting with Sean Fraser yesterday, 2 days ago?
Sure. So Sean Fraser is an MP here in Nova Scotia. He's the parliamentary secretary for the Minister of Finance, and I didn't know before this year much about what parliamentary secretaries are. They're kind of almost the deputy, not the deputy minister, but they're almost like the deputy to the minister of whatever portfolio. So Sean Fraser is a very important MP that's local. He's been very accessible to us business groups across Nova Scotia. But certainly what he's hearing from us is, again, these are key pieces. If you kind of think about the recovery, happening as the recovery happens, as restrictions loosen, as business goes up, frankly, these programs can go down. But at the moment, we're still in a situation, of course, in Nova Scotia where we're virtually locked down. When we do open up this summer, the anticipation is, this summer, hopefully, will look a lot like last summer, but probably not much more than that. And we do know that just simply wasn't a sustainable business model for most businesses. So, I mean, the main point to the federal government is, especially with these two programs, the federal government, is that they need to remain in place and robust, to the point where we're kind of back to a normal situation where it's a regular economy and businesses at that point, have to kind of, sink or swim on their own based on a robust economy. But until we get to that point, these two programs in particular are crucial. So that's the message that we are getting out, to all the, to all the MPs, any chance we get, and are working, not only here in Nova Scotia but across the country. But Sean Fraser has a director here of the Minister of Finance, so he's an important person. If you're buddies with Sean, remind him about these points as well. And businesses should be contacting their MPs with some of these points. These two programs in particular are ones that need to continue at a level that's sufficient enough that it's going to get, it's going to carry businesses through. And I think the other point that we try to make is there is light at the end of the tunnel. It would be a real shame, for businesses that have hung on for the past 14 months, whatever, to now not succeed, when we really think that kind of come fall, things are really going to be much more of a normal situation.
Right. So that's a great explanation and a great reminder for people. It's great to listen to us. You do have MPs, you do have MLAs. I would encourage you to let them know what you're thinking if you're a business owner. If you're concerned about a change to a program, and because, let's say, the wage subsidy is going to go down to 20%, and you're a restaurant and you say, hey, look, like, we've been decimated over the last 12 months. We need to continue that money because we don't think we're going to significantly increase our revenue as July and August come along. And as we head into September, let them know that so that they pass it on. Remember, there is a federal election coming sometime soon. There's also a provincial election coming sometime soon. And people are very interested, particularly our elected representatives, and I know there's some of them on the line with us today. They're very interested in what you're thinking. And they really do want to help. There's a lot of pressure as an elected representative. They do want to help. I did have another question here about revenue, and it's an excellent question. The question is basically, an individual bought a business. They made a number of improvements to the business, so they've actually increased their revenue rather than seeing a decrease, but they did put a number of investments into their business. So if they're looking at net income, there's a drop, but if they're looking at revenue, it's an increase. This is a problem, and this is why we can't look at one thing in as an absolute. We have to look at other things. So if rent is the issue there, this individual, I would encourage you, and again, I don't know if you're able to, but I would encourage you to apply for the wage subsidy. I would encourage you to look at other options. Hopefully you've also applied for the CEBA, the Canadian Emergency Business Account, which we'll talk about in a few moments. I'm not going to go into a lot of gory detail on the wage subsidy, other than to say it is about revenue. You do need to see a drop, and if you see that drop, then you can get a percentage of the salaries for your staff back. I will admit the Chamber has been a beneficiary of this, and we're very proud to say that we are, because the goal for this, as we lost a third of our revenue, the goal, our goal was to keep our staff employed. And we've kept our staff employed with the support of some of these programs, okay? Which is what they were designed for, as we had that significant revenue drop in our case.
Patrick, you should handle the hard questions. I'll do the easy one. So LR has a question about not-for-profits. Are they eligible for these programs? Yes, they are. And again, depending on what the revenue situation is. So if they've lost revenue, then yes.
Right. The Canadian Emergency Business Account, this is a great program. You know, I mean, I understand people don't want loans. Nobody wants a loan, but there is a grant portion that comes with this emergency business account. Paul, I mean, do you know how many of your members have actually taken advantage of this program?
When we looked at this, actually, it was we did a recent survey, which was just ground floor businesses. So you kind of think retail, restaurant, you know, salons, that type of thing. This one actually was fairly low, and I think the feedback that we've had from those kinds of businesses is they've already got so much debt that you know the loan programs, you know, weren't really the ones that they were most interested in. But again, having said that, it is a suite. So yes, for lots of businesses, they don't want to take on more debt. They're already you know in debt up to their eyeballs, and you know they've got a second mortgage on their house. I mean, a lot of this bleeds into their personal area. But there are businesses that need credit and need to take on additional debt. And so, you know, if you compare this loan program to a regular loan program that you'd get from a bank, this one's pretty good. So if you're in a position where you're able to take on more debt, it's essentially kind of part debt and part grant. So, you know, if you're in that position, this is a good program to take advantage of. And again, you have to look at your own financial situation to see whether you want to take on that debt. But as you said, there is a grant portion to this as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we applied for the $40,000 for sure, because again, we were down a third of our revenue. You know, we're not a restaurant. We weren't ordered closed. You know, we've had a lot of benefits along the way, but we applied for the $40,000, and we had no debt at the time, but we wanted to get the $10,000 grant portion, right? So I would encourage people to take. You know, I understand you don't want debt, but if you take the $40,000, you can pay it back, right? I mean, I hate to take advantage of a situation, but if someone's giving me $40,000 and I have to pay back 30. By December of 2022, I might add, you can pay it back tomorrow or next month because there's no interest on it, and you can then keep the $10,000. So this program offered $40,000 up front in the original program, and then an additional $20,000. So again, would really encourage people to take advantage of this. This program alone has delivered almost $700 million to Nova Scotia businesses, not-for-profits, and other organizations. So, you know, there is a lot of money coming into the province from these. Paul, do you want to say something?
I was saying, I do like some of these pages for the federal programs have these nice little stats at the bottom that do show the extent of the program. And again, individual businesses may or may not care about these macro numbers, but certainly for other organizations like ourselves to determine, okay, are these programs effective? You know, this is good feedback, right? Because I think that, you know, what the federal government and all the governments have done is they've gotten these, in some cases, got these programs out fairly quickly, and they've been willing to get feedback and in fact to change them if they haven't been working. And so in this one, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, but I think they just increased this one as well. So it was a $40,000 grant program. It's now up to $60,000. There's kind of two different streams. You can apply for the 40 or the 60, but the 60 is now an option as well.
Yeah, they did. They actually did the additional 20 a while ago, and we have. I can assure you, we are encouraging people significantly at the federal level to do another tranche of this. You know, I mean, the provincial programs are wonderful, but I can tell you, because I've seen the numbers, that the federal programs, including the wage subsidy, the rent subsidy, CEBA, have delivered almost $2 billion to Nova Scotia businesses. The provincial programs have delivered slightly over 100 million. So, you know, when you think about these programs, there's simply no comparison between the federal programs and the provincial programs. $2 billion to Nova Scotia businesses and not-for-profits, and 100 million. So again, I would really encourage people. Peter has asked an important question. Becky, I'm going to need you to call Sandra, who's our finance person, to ask about that comparison to 19 or 20. I know that there was, Peter, a way during CEWS to switch. I think you're asking the question. Yeah, you are asking the question. So I know there was a period that you could switch and go from sort of previous year to a different period. I know we did switch. I don't know if from period 14 on, we're now allowed to do that. But Becky, maybe you could give Sandra a call and we could ask, and you could put it in the chat. Lisa has asked whether that $2 billion includes CERB. The next time Paul talks, actually, I don't know that I can look right now, Lisa, but I'm happy to get back to you. And in fact, Lisa, if you want to send me a note, I'll actually provide you the detail by category of business for Nova Scotia up to December. Happy to give you that information that I picked up a little while ago. Okay. So I've just talked about that component, which is the emergency business account. The way you get the emergency business account is you go through your bank. Or credit union, important to say, or credit union. And you can get it in a number of different ways. I think it kind of depends on the bank, so I won't go into the gory details. Some of them are actually giving you the amount like up front. Some of them are doing it as a line of credit, so you need to draw on it. So in the example of $40,000, you actually need to draw the entire $40,000. You can't say, well, I'll take 10 and that'll be the part I'll keep. You have to take the 40 to get the 10, right? So it's a little tricky. Paul, do you want to say something?
No, I'm just agreeing with you.
Okay.
Synopsis.
Okay. I'm going to also say there's a number of specific supports that have come out in the last little while. So for Black business owners, there is a Black Entrepreneurship program. I know that Rustam Southwell of the Black Business Initiative is actually on the national board. I think it's the board for this. So if you are a Black business owner, I would encourage you to contact BBI, so the Black Business Initiative, and they will be able to help you to identify which program would be right for you and how you can take advantage of that.
And there's a bit of hometown pride with that one as well, because my understanding is that BBI, and we know Rustam through our calls, and Mark Martel, who's with BBI, is on my board. So they were, my understanding is that organization was instrumental in the creation of this program as well. So, it came out of some hard work from BBI, which is a great local organization here. So again, obviously, if you're a Black entrepreneur or business owner, we want you to look into this program, and kudos to BBI for the hard work that they put into this.
Right. Well, and it's important to realize that Black business owners or racialized persons of color, and women have been disproportionately impacted during this pandemic. Women, because they have sadly disproportionately lost more jobs than men, and often in a relationship, the mother tends to be the primary caregiver. And I know that that's different in every relationship, so please don't call me out on that. But according to the statistic, that's what happens. And again, it's difficult to work from home if you have the opportunity to work from home. So it's great to see programs that are identifying specific communities like this. The Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, they've had a number of programs. So they're ACOA, or the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, have been offering a program called the Regional Recovery Fund. It's basically, they have had a number of programs. So if any of you have dealt with ACOA, you should speak to your ACOA person about programs that you may be available for. But the sorry, looking at the chat as I go along here. You should speak to them, but they've also supported, if you were unable to get the CEBA, that's the $40,000 and then ultimately the $20,000, they've been able through the Regional Recovery Fund to assist by providing a different program that's very similar. And then through the CBDC, is that the group, Paul?
No, it was the, just having a seniors moment here, Patrick.
It's kind of the rural group, right? The rural support group.
No, there was the. I thought it was ACOA themselves that were looking after kind of the rural areas, and it was a different organization that was looking after some of the urban.
Yeah, I think they actually send it off to the. I'm going to get the name wrong, but CBDC is that I've got the name wrong.
Glad we prepared for this, Patrick.
Exactly. Anyway, someone will know on the chat, but it's like so and so Blue Water, are kind of the regional group.
The thing I'll mention about ACOA is, and they've been on lots of these calls that we've been on as well, is there's lots of programs and they're at different orders of government, and not everyone is going to be as familiar with who does what with these things. So one of the roles that ACOA has played through this fund, and just generally as an organization, is to say that they will help navigate people. So if you're just kind of overwhelmed and lost about what you're eligible for, ACOA is a group you can call. There's also the Halifax Partnership if you're in Halifax, which I assume most people on this call are, or the Nova Scotia Business Inc., which is provincial. All those organizations have said to contact them if you just feel stuck or overwhelmed or just want some advice on how to navigate these programs. All those groups have said they will help. The other thing I'll mention about ACOA too is they do fund other programs, so you're not necessarily applying directly to ACOA, but getting the benefit. So even ourselves, the business commissions, there's 9 of us in Halifax. $300,000 from ACOA was invested through us last year for digital marketing money. So those are individual grants that were available to all of our members across the city. That program was funded by ACOA, and currently there's a grant program that we have operating, which ACOA is also funding, which is a placemaking program, which really is about if you're a ground floor business. It's about if you want to add some flowers or new lighting or kind of just anything that's going to really enhance the public space, outside of your business. There's a grant program available through all the business districts as well. So you can go. Our website's downtownhalifax.ca. If you're downtown Halifax, if not, you can still coordinate with us and we can direct you to the right group. But those are ACOA funded programs as well.
Okay. I had a question, a couple of questions actually. One question that said, for a business that doesn't want to take on more debt, is it a reasonable strategy to take advantage of CEBA and shortly after repay the loan portion or bank it until it's due? Absolutely. Absolutely. You want that $20,000 in grant for sure. And then the additional question about the restaurant. My restaurant is at arm's length with the landlord. Originally didn't qualify. Did this change? I don't know the specific answer. My belief is if you are truly at arm's length, then yes. But I know the rules changed with the program. So I can get back to you. I don't know if can everybody see who asked the question in Q&A? I don't know, Sandra, if you can. Anyway, so I'm not going to name the person, but I know who you are. So I can get back to you with that answer. Okay. I'm going to skip back here to the federal, back to the federal programs. We talked a little bit about Atlantic Canada's Opportunity Agency. I'm not going to go into some of these details about recovery sickness benefit, recovery benefit. I will say there are new programs coming from the federal government that were announced in the budget now, and the budget has been passed. So those new programs included hiring incentives. That there's not yet a lot of detail on what that program is going to look like, but it's supposed to be kind of the replacement for the wage subsidy. As we come out of the wage subsidy, they want to stop giving money to organizations for the, if you will, people's salaries. They want to start giving money if people are going to hire more people. There's a number of outstanding questions about that. First, we're not really in a place where that's a good thing to have yet, although it's a great thing to have eventually. Second, how will a restaurant who has laid off 25% of their staff be able to rehire people and qualify for that program? We don't know the answer to that yet. There's another program that is a $500 million tourism program, $500 million across the country, of which Nova Scotia would get, kind of our share, which is, not 500 million, probably 30 million, something like that, or whatever the number is, given the proportion of our population. That'll be administered by ACOA, and ACOA will get more details on that as more details are forthcoming. I want to watch our time here, so I want to jump into the provincial resources. Sorry, here we go. Okay. So here we are in the provincial resources. I'm going to change my page now to actually go. This is the page, if you go to novascotia.ca/coronavirus, this is the page where the province has tried to put kind of all the information, and then you can drill down from here. So down at the bottom of this page now is the area called financial help and social supports. Oh God, did that get really big for you too, Paul? Or?
Oh, it just did now, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
there we go.
So
So that initial page was very cute. Now we're into a lot of text again, but I
We are,
did like the
exactly.
little icons.
Yeah. So there is a link here that says support for business. I'm going to click on that. And then there's a list. It's the list of the current provincial programs. Okay. So there have been programs in the past. If we go way back to March of last year, there was a rent deferral assistance program. It's kind of interesting. And Lisa, you may want to think about this because it was a guarantee program. You know, the government put aside $5 million for this. But now they may not need that $5 million because people may have paid their rent or taken advantage of another program, which means that $5 million may be freed up. Let's hope they'll spend it on something else for businesses in the province. Anyway, that's not even mentioned anymore. And that's, sorry, it's a very detailed comment on some of the monies that the province has. There's programs for agricultural response program. It talks about federal support, meaning go there first. They've now offered a sick leave program. I know some of the businesses that we represent aren't terribly happy about it because it does cost some money for the employer. But just to reassure the employers that are out there, if your employees can now get up to 4 days off, they can get up to $640 from the province. The province is asking you to pay that. We think that's a good idea. And it's a good idea because it actually encourages people to take the day off if they're not well, which will reduce the spread of COVID, which will get us out of this faster. It also allows for people to get a vaccination and get time off to do that. So we think that's a good thing. It is a bit of a pain for employers because they will have to administer it, admittedly, and it will cost employers, I think it's about $62 or $64 if you pay your employee $640 and then ask for sort of the $640 back, you only get back sort of $580 or you may get back $640, but you will have already paid $62 for CPP and EI and all that sort of thing. So it does cost employers a little bit. I had heard yesterday it's optional. I don't know that, so I'm not going to say that that's a for sure because I'm actually hoping it isn't. I'm hoping that people will stay home if they're not feeling well so that we can get out of this even faster. The Small Business Impact Grant number 3, this is where I'm hearing a lot of complaints for people from people right now from small businesses, and they're right to complain because there is not an amount of money that can support the loss that they've had, you know, right now or in the past. I guess what I would say, however, is if we're looking to where the money should come from, I just mentioned the $2 billion that's come from the federal government and the $100 million that's come from the province of Nova Scotia. I won't get into the arguments that we at the Chamber, and I'm sure Paul has made in the past. I know Paul was talking to people as recently as yesterday. You know, the arguments that we would make that businesses need more money because they do. But I would again say if the federal government had given, you know, whatever it is, 100 times or more than the province, you know where the right place to look first is, okay? And then there's the Small Business Impact Grant. It's not, I'll click on it, but there's not enough information yet. Talks a little bit about eligibility. If you received it in the past, you should have already received a link now, and you can apply, and it takes minutes to do that application, and you'll get your money again, okay? But Paul, I know you guys did a report recently, and people aren't getting $5,000, right? It's up to.
Yeah, so kind of the thing I'll add with Small Business Impact Grant. So the good news was that this is a program that businesses are using. So our very recent poll, which we did just a couple of days ago, indicated that pretty much everyone that was eligible took advantage of the Small Business Impact Grant in the first 2 rounds. So at that point, that didn't include retail. That was just businesses that faced restrictions in the first 2 rounds. The round 3 will be eligible to retailers. So people are taking advantage of it. But what we found was that it was a little under 20% of businesses were getting the full 5,000. So that means 80% were not. So I think out there's kind of a perception that this is $5,000 per business. It's not. It's a sliding scale. And so again, we would encourage everyone, you know, regardless of whether you think it's the right amount or not. We happen to think it's not as Downtown Halifax. tax, but we're encouraging businesses to apply for it. And you'll get, you put in your information and it'll tell you how much you're eligible for. We do continue to advocate to the province that this amount be increased. But in the meantime, we would encourage all businesses who are eligible, which is most ground floor businesses at this point for round 3, to get in there and fill this out ASAP. Which is open. Oh, sorry, not ASP. It's not open yet, right, Patrick? But it's coming.
It's not open yet. If you've already received it, it's open, and you will have received a link. But it will open, I think, when we were last time, after May 19th. So I think they're planning here. We're on the 14th. So on May 19th, they're supposed to open it up. And there is one great thing about this, and that is if you have a business with more than one establishment, you can now claim up to $5,000 or some element up to for each establishment. And this is really important. I mean, I spoke to an owner of a salon recently who actually owns 4 salons. So he owns 4 salons, and until recently, for the previous small business impact grants, he could only get up to $5,000 in total. Now he can get up to $5,000 per salon, which is it's a big change, and hopefully people will take advantage of that. For those folks, they can't do it until after May 19th when it opens up again. Let's see. That's an interesting one. So for somebody who said what happened to small impact loan number 2, they received the first one, and now I'm hearing about the third until we get it automatically, but I've never heard about round 2. So I guess the first thing I would say is if you're hearing about the third one, but you haven't already received a link, then that's a problem. You should have. It does go to businesses that were ordered closed, but so you may be a little bit different. And I don't know, you're an anonymous attendee, so I don't know what kind of business it is. I did put my email up there. If you want to send me an email after, or for anybody, if you have specific questions, I'm happy to take those specific questions and get back to you with our best attempt at an answer. Okay. And we're not lawyers and we're not accountants, just to remind everybody of that. Let's see. And then you will be able, when you see the new application, which will be available next week, it will have I expect it'll have a box that'll say multiple locations on it or something like that. So we're not quite sure because we haven't seen it yet, but I expect it'll have a box. And if you haven't seen I will say one thing about the Small Business Impact Grant. We've heard multiple reports in the first one, particularly more in the first one than the second, that the links went to people's spam or junk file. So do take a look there. But if you didn't get number 2 and you were eligible for number 1, I think you should have, because many of those businesses were closed. I will say it's a slight difference. If you were dentists were ordered closed in number 1, but they were not ordered closed in number 2, so therefore they wouldn't have received it. But I suspect you're not a dentist. Anyway, lots information. It's coming, and you should keep an eye out for it. The small business property tax rebate. This is supposed to open today. It is not yet open, but it is supposed to open today, May 14th.
Patrick's going to spend the rest of the day hitting refresh. Exactly. And he's going to let us all know the minute it arrives.
Right. Exactly.
This one's an interesting program. So again, this one is meant to get cash into the pockets of businesses, which we like. It's not a loan program. It is direct money, and it is tied, for whatever reason, it's tied to property taxes. So to my mind, it's a little bit nebulous and complicated in the sense that it's eligible. Tenants can get it. So there's some confusion around this because only landlords pay commercial property taxes. It is eligible to tenants. You just have to know, what you're paying as part of your common costs or your rent to your landlord, how much of that is going towards commercial property taxes. So you may or may not get that broken down in your rent. If you don't, you should be able to get that from your landlord. I don't know why they wouldn't share that with you, but ask your landlord for that information. And you're eligible for up to half of your first tax bill. So kind of essentially 25% of your total tax bill for the year, if you want to think of it that way.
Yeah.
And it comes to you as a check, and that money can then be applied to anything. If the application process is too complicated and you don't have that information in terms of what portion of your rent is going towards taxes, there is $1,000 kind of straight up grant that's available as well. So there's kind of a little bit of an easier option. If you're happy enough to take the $1,000, that's much easier, or you can figure out the final tax information. We have advised the province that hopefully there won't be challenges with this. Hopefully everyone's got this information at their fingertips or can get it easily. We have said to the province that this may be like the first round of the federal rent program. It may just be a couple of extra steps that maybe don't make sense. So we've asked them to be prepared to change the way it works if there's not a lot of take up. But so this is one that we want to closely monitor to make sure that people are using this program. But again, it is cash in your pocket. So we would encourage just as soon as it becomes open today, we would encourage all businesses to apply for this.
Yeah, so I've got a note from somebody who says, what would you suggest for the landlord who's unresponsive? I think we'll know better today when we actually see the application, because you may not, I don't think you certainly don't need to ask your landlord's permission, that's for sure, but you may need to provide some documentation. So that would be the only issue. But typically landlords would break out the data on your lease. You'll kind of pay a lease amount and then they'll give you the over and above, typically, not always. But we'll know today. So take a look at the application. Well, we'll know today if it actually launches today. Take a look at it. And if you have some questions, get back to me after it launches. If there is information, and I can put you in touch with people within the province who I think would be happy to have a conversation with you about what to do if the landlord is unresponsive. Okay, so I'm going to skip back here to let's see, not hello. Okay. I mean, I see the comment here about they got the small business impact grant number 1 and number 2. It's interesting, but you're not listed as eligible this time because you were not ordered closed. I'm a bit shocked myself. So that sounds terrible. I don't know if I can help, but certainly send me an email and we'll ask that question when I'm on with government in 35 minutes. So if you can send me details, I'm happy to ask that question in 35 minutes. Okay, we've only got like 5 minutes left, so I want to quickly go back to some of this stuff. Sorry, I skipped back too far. Support for business. And that's kind of where we are. The tourism accommodations real property tax rebate is, I think it's out there now, but it may actually be over. Anyway, I think it's, I think
that one's still available, Patrick.
Okay, good. Okay.
But I think essentially it's the same program as the one that we just talked about. It's just there's almost two streams. One is for tourism accommodations, and one is for kind of restaurant, retail, other businesses that were impacted by the restrictions.
Right. So I mean,
you can't apply for both. So if you're a hotel, you can't apply for the tourism one and the regular one. You can only apply for one.
Right. So you can see, frankly, just by the volume of things that are on this page, which is the province versus the federal government. I mean, honestly, guys, you really got to look at the feds first. And I know people do, but make sure you've exhausted every option federally before you go looking for the provincial ones, because they're simply not that big. And that's a part of our system. In that provinces don't have as much money as the federal government. So I'm going to quickly go through a couple more pages here, and that is Municipal Resources. There's some information on the municipality. There have been offers in the past. There's been waiving patio fees. There is a conversation about a program called a COVID waiver. So this municipality has asked in the past if people have or plan to run an event, they've asked them to sign a COVID waiver. We've been working closely, and I know Paul has been kind of leading the charge on this, working closely with the municipality to get them to put that away and forget about that. We're making some really great progress, and the city's been very responsive to that as we get into this year. And we think there's a solution coming. We just don't quite know what it is just yet. but I think there's a solution that'll happen in the next couple of weeks. Just there's ways to support local, and this is not an exhaustive list, but I would encourage you to shop local. I suspect many of the businesses here are local people. Then if there's a way to save money, here's some offers from Chamber Affinity programs or partners, and then just some business to business support. Although I will admit some of that is not quite as active. Paul, you and I were perhaps talking before. If you do want some additional detail, if anybody on the line has relationships with NSBI or the Halifax Partnership, and of course the Halifax Chamber, they have additional resources as well to answer some of the questions that you have and provide some of the information that you may need. Peter, you did ask a question about CEWS. I didn't get back to you with an answer because we're running out of time, but if you want to send me an email, my email is there. Happy to get back to you with our best attempt at an answer on that.
So Peter, it's really because he doesn't know the answer.
I don't
not because of time.
I do not know the answer. I will readily admit it.
We will get it for you.
Exactly. So Paul, we're kind of at the end of our time. What do you want to tell people as they go away today?
Well, I guess apply early, apply often. As Patrick said, it's really a suite of programs. There's no one program that is going to help your business survive through this pandemic. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and I think at this point, I mean, as frustrating as this third wave has been, and I think we're hearing more frustration than ever. But if you think back a year ago, it was uncertainty. That's what people just didn't know what was going to happen. We're tired, exhausted a year into this pandemic. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I think really now it's that home stretch. And I know, Pat, you're a marathon runner, and I'm not, so I can only go from what I hear from marathon runners. But it's that last stretch that seems the hardest. But that's no time to drop out of the race, right? So we're here to help, both the Chamber and Downtown Halifax and lots of other resources as well. So reach out if you need help accessing these programs or just understanding them. That's part of our role, is translating government speak to business speak sometimes. So don't be afraid to reach out, and stay safe, everyone. And we are, like I said, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's coming up.
Right. And I absolutely agree with you, Paul. I mean, I think that's why this particular lockdown has been so frustrating for people, is because I don't think we expected it. I don't think we expected to be in this situation in Nova Scotia, because we really haven't been in this particular situation with a high number of cases, for a year and a half. We've been very, very lucky, and you get to be lucky by being good. And we've been good, and we've done what we need to do, and all of those kinds of things. But businesses need support. We're happy to try to speak again to anyone who has individual questions or specific questions about some of these programs, or help to get you in touch with the people that perhaps can answer those. So thank you very much, everybody.
Sorry, Patrick, just a final plug, which I would be remiss. We are hosting the business improvement districts across Nova Scotia are hosting a Ask Government webinar, which is happening this Monday. It's actually open to anyone. You don't have to be a business commission member to join. It's actually open to anyone. So just send me an email or go to our website, downtownhalifax.ca. We will have representatives from public health and from the Department of Inclusive Economic Growth, formerly business. So those are the key departments in the provincial government. So we will have ministers and deputy ministers available to take direct questions. So we would encourage you to join us for that if you want to talk to the experts.
Absolutely. Okay, great, Paul. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And I will get back on some of the questions that have been asked here to the folks that I know. Okay, thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.